Welcome to our best indies ever, everybody, to have graced the Nintendo Switch. These are our own personal picks and the games that we enjoyed the most. The rules were simple. We could only pick 5 each between James, Jordan and I. We have some community member picks from YouTube also, so thank you for getting involved. And we'd love to know your favourite indie game of all time on the Nintendo Switch, so please let us know in the comments down below. Before we get started in this video, we want to thank our sponsor of this, Cubic Games and All In Games. And they wanted to highlight their own indie Tools Up, which has a massive 75% discount until May 1st, so be sure to check that out. An incredible price for this couch co-op where you can have fun with up to 4 players in total. You're a band of renovators who will need to strip walls of their wallpaper, paint walls and follow those blueprints. You have to lead a crew and make sure everybody knows their task. Now you can cooperate or not cooperate at all, and I've seen loads of relationships fall apart with this game. Honestly, a ton of fun here to be had. And the great news is that there's 3 episodic DLCs on their way, and the first one is Garden Party, where you'll be able to renovate those gardens to your heart's content. You'll need lots of care and watering, and the fastest way to get the job done is to use a garden hose, but will you be able to control its attempts to escape? There's going to be loads of fun to be had here for sure, and if you want to purchase this one, just remember until May 1st, there's a massive 75% off. A massive thank you to our sponsors again.
Hey everyone, it's James here. Many thanks there, Juan. Now, one of the great things about indie games is that we get to enjoy some brilliantly different titles from time to time that stand apart from the 100 other similar games that we play all the time. Katana Zero is one of these creations and my first pick on this list. As a drug-fueled katana-wielding killer, you take on levels where one slice kills your enemies and one hit equals your own death. Each stage is timed and requires skill to succeed, but there is joy in multiple different ways to tackle each level. When you die, the game rewinds with a nice VHS style and you go again. The game is visually pleasing with a neo-noir setting, and the way enemies crumple is really satisfying. But on top of that, there's a really gripping 80s style thriller story that unfolds in between stages, and there's even a couple of different endings to discover. A really nice package, this one.
What is there to say about Dead Cells that hasn't been said before? I just talked about it a couple of weeks back in our best Switch games ever, and so it would be daft not to include it here, right? Anyways, this is just an amazing roguelike Metroidvania action game featuring slick combat, great challenge, plenty of unlockables, and is basically digital crack. I mean, you cannot stop playing it, even when you're getting your ass kicked like I was while reviewing it. Plus the content just keeps coming too. One of the best supported games out there and keeps the masochists coming back for more.
Thanks very much. Great pick there, by the way. Now I'm going to start with my first pick, which is a game that's already graced many of our lists before, and that is, of course, Hollow Knight. One of the best indie games on the Nintendo Switch, in my view. I enjoyed everything about it, from the tight gameplay mechanics to the beautiful artwork, sweet upgrades, and a Metroidvania game, which is always one of my favourite genres anyway. So this was an easy pick to be one of my favourite indie games on the Nintendo Switch of all time, and of course I'm looking forward to that sequel, Silk Song, which will hopefully drop very soon.
Cuphead is one of the coolest platformers out there, with a unique 1930s cartoon style that works so well and is so stylish and artfully crafted that you will feel as though you are playing in a beautiful cartoon, complete with original jazz recordings. With its run and gun gameplay and knuckle whitening, intense boss battles, this isn't a game that puts style over substance. You will 100% fail a fair amount until you figure out each boss's patterns and how to succeed in your quest to free yourself from a bad deal with the devil himself. This features a lovely drop-in arcade-style co-op where the second player plays as Cuphead's sidekick Mugman, and you can play with a single Joy-Con each, either in docked or tabletop mode, making this a superb local co-op pick as well. Renato Ferraz agrees with me, picking this as well, and goes on to say that it is a masterpiece which shines in every aspect. It was his most anticipated game for the Switch, and he could not put it down until it was complete.
Stardew Valley is one of the quintessential indie games of all time. Primarily made by just one dude, it's an absolute marvel, and it's better than the Harvest Moon games that inspired it. Even the modern iterations can't come close to this damn near perfection. If you want a farming life sim, this is the one to go to. There's really no question about it. Just discovering all it has to offer is an adventure in itself. This is easily my most played Switch game of all time, and the dude just keeps adding more and more content to it. We are not worthy of Stardew Valley.
Next up for me is Narita Boy, which was a very recent release. I talked about this as one of my favourite games on the Switch actually in one of our other lists, and I'll put that in the right hand corner. Narita Boy is an indie game I reviewed recently. I loved every minute of it. Something about the Tron-like visuals, fantastic synth music captured me, but then that brilliant gameplay where fighting loads of bosses and has a lot of variety of enemy kept me enthralled while unlocking more and more of those memories. I really enjoyed it, and if you want to know more, you can check out my review. I reviewed this game on the channel. All we need now is that wonderful physical, which hopefully someone will make in the future.
Enter the Gungeon is a twin-stick shooter inspired by the likes of Robotron 2084 with precise, unforgiving combat set in rooms that you need to clear with a top-down view, and it hasn't lost that arcade, bullet hell carnage feeling that just works. It does so mixing in roguelike elements with randomized rooms and loot, new characters to unlock with permanent and in-run progression, not to mention big badass bosses and ridiculously cool guns. Speaking of guns and ammo, they are everywhere. Your character and enemies, environments and items are all cleverly shaped bullets. What I love about this game is how you will feel like a real wimp at first, and then after a few frustrating hours things start to click and you feel like Rambo as you roll and show enemies just how tough you are for fun. Throw into the mix the updates with co-op, and this is an essential addition to your collection.
Now my next choice may not be the game everyone agrees with, but I bloody loved it. Banner of the Maid was one of my favourite games of the last year, and I'm pretty much the only person who won't shut up about it. This is a nice strategy RPG that mixes Fire Emblem tactical gameplay with the feeling of Final Fantasy Tactics. It's set in an alternative French Revolution with historic figures such as Napoleon, and he has never looked sexier. This is a really cool game, and it can be tough but rewarding, and I just wish it had a physical release, and God, I have tried to make that happen.
Celeste for me is a fantastic platforming masterpiece. It's a narrative-driven game that features over 700 screens of tricky platforming gameplay. Everything about this, from the tight controls, that sublime soundtrack, hits all the right notes. Once complete, you can then try those brutal B-side levels, which are unbelievable in how tough they are. A great challenge indeed, and this just has everything to make it one of the best indies to have graced the Nintendo Switch.
Hades is another superb game from Supergiant Games, the team that brought us Transistor and Bastion, and like those games, it's a silky smooth and polished affair with outstanding narration that really sets it apart. It's a roguelike dungeon crawler that came out last year and blew us away. You play as Zagreus, son of Hades, who wants to escape the underworld and will fail many times, gradually getting stronger as you go. The Pantheon cast is brilliant, and the way that they recall your runs and taunt or support you is such a nice touch, but it's in the action that things really come alive. With a choice of 6 weapons once you progress, each offers a different playstyle to take on the hordes of undead. This is one hell of a game that you won't want to put down, and is also the Cigar Trucker's pick, and he goes on to say he loves the story, the power-ups and replayability, a roguelike like no other, a perfect game, and that's why this was also JCrod776's pick as well.
Yoku's Island Express is a fantastic pinballvania. Yes, it mixes the genres of Metroidvania with the mechanics of pinball, and it just works way better than you would think. You are a dung beetle who becomes the postmaster of an island, which you soon have to save as an evil looms. Bumpers and ramps litter the island, allowing you to get around, and the Metroidvania style keeps it an ever-expanding adventure that does not outstay its welcome. It's a brilliant little game that kept me thoroughly entertained throughout. And Brent McLean chose this as his pick, saying it looks great and has a fun, engaging story, and the pinball gaming mechanic was crazy fun and never got old.
Children of Morta is a game that I fell in love with when I reviewed it for the channel. Your job is to protect Morta. You have a whole family to do it with, all of which have varying different playstyles in this awesome roguelike dungeon crawler. The story is told by a narrator who will instantly have you drawn in from the moment you load up this game. The visuals and epic soundtrack are the icing on the cake in this extremely compelling and playable title. Alexander Cato also picks this as his favourite and goes on to say he loves how it's narrated and the artwork is just wow. Thank you very much, Alexander. If you're enjoying this video so far, then why not consider subscribing and also thinking about checking out joining our YouTube membership plans, where you'll have access to our emojis, badges, and the ability to take part in our videos like today.
The whole SteamWorld series of steampunk games from Image and Form is superb, and it's SteamWorld Heist that shines the brightest for me, taking this series in a different direction with turn-based tactical 2D strategic gameplay. As a ragtag crew of spacefaring robots, you take on enemy crews, boarding their largely procedurally generated ships in turn-based gunfights, complete with an ingenious ricocheting mechanic that rewards skill and planning as opposed to luck. There are different characters with their own skills and playstyles, glorious weapons to loot, and thrilling combat. Outside of the gunfights, there are plenty of characters to meet across space, including steam-powered Giraffe, the band behind the game's wonderful soundtrack, which is such a great touch. This is an essential strategy game for fans of the genre and a real top indie game. Jonathan Rumor has picked another Image and Form game in SteamWorld Quest due to its deep card-based RPG, mechanics with charming characters and a compelling plot. Another must-have indeed.
I asked Juan if a PlayStation 1 game from 1997 counted as an indie game for the Switch, and, well, he didn't say anything, but I'm picking it anyways. Moon. Yes, Moon was once a Japanese exclusive PS1 game that never saw a Western localization until it appeared on the Switch last year. This is an adventure game as you go around clearing up the mess made by a so-called hero in an RPG. You try to save the souls of the innocent monsters slain by him, and this is just a wonderful, sweet, thoughtful game that has a theme of love to it. And I loved it. It's quirky, unique, and if you enjoyed something like Undertale, I recommend you check out Moon.
And my last pick out of the 5 is Blasphemous. The combat is absolutely brutal. You can customize your build by discovering and equipping relics, rosary beads, prayers, and sword hearts. Loads of combinations for you to find the best play style for yourself. Best of all are the boss battles, which are epic in scope and absolutely huge, dwarfing your character. It's a great game, especially for those that like worlds that are dark and twisted. This is also Michael DePolito's pick, which he goes on to say the game pulls you in with its dark stylized aesthetics and keeps you there with its tough as nails combat and platforming. Thank you very much, Michael. And that's it for my top 5 games. Now we're going to take a look at some of your community picks. Raven Knight chooses Pode as one of his favourite all-time indies, one of the first games that he got on the Switch, with a brilliant use of co-op play and a lovely heartbreaking, heartwarming story, especially for 2 characters with no dialogue. A very relaxing platform puzzler with the soundtrack and the colours and art style too. Thank you very much, Raven. Carl Sallow picked Broforce on the Nintendo Switch in our last list, citing it as one of his favourite ever games, but he wanted to choose something different for his favourite indie, and that is Sea of Solitude. He loves the atmosphere of the game, the water he says is unique, and I know that some don't like the story, but he thought it was enticing to hear the stories of the characters in the game. He doesn't want to spoil anything, but how they start off dark and bring out the light in the world and character as you unravel the story of those characters. The game means a lot to him. He says sorry for the long paragraph. I'm sure we can forgive you, Carl. Thank you for your pick. Elisa wanted to pick River City Girls. She says it's a nice, refreshing take on the beat-em-up genre. It's infused with bright and colourful art styles and a wonderful soundtrack that keeps bringing you back into the game. We certainly cannot argue with that. We also thought that that was an absolutely fantastic game with a very worthy physical to go with it too. And lastly, we have Iron Zombie, who's picked Axiom Verge, saying great gameplay, music and story, a well-crafted game considering it was made by only one person, Thomas Happ. We're certainly not disagreeing with you, Iron Zombie, and are looking very much forward to the sequel later this year. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our video. Thank you to all of our members for your picks. If you do want to join our members area, then click on that join button for all of the options. You can also speak with us on Discord and let us know some of your favourite games. We talk to all of our community there with anything gaming related, and it's not just Nintendo Switch, we talk about everything else too. So check out the link in the description if you want to join us over there. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, then you may want to think about doing so you don't miss another Switch related video. Thank you to our executive producers, subscribers, members, and all of you watching. If you're still watching, then you're an absolute legend. Leave me a thumbs up in the comment down below so I know who you are. Take care, everybody. James, Jordan, and I thank you so much. We'll see you again on the next one.